Hi, Whitney. How are you?
Hello, I'm well. How are you?
I'm so well. Thank you for taking the time. I'm here with Whitney Tiller, and I am going to start with your bio.
Okay.
Whitney has been working in birth, supporting mothers and babies for over 11 years. In 2014, she trained as a registered midwife, delivering babies at the Royal Sussex County Hospital. In 2019, she became a tongue-tie practitioner midwife, running infant feeding clinics across two NHS hospitals and diagnosing and treating over 500 infants annually for tethered oral tissue. In 2021, she became the infant feeding specialist midwife, training patients and healthcare staff in breastfeeding support and contributing to her Trust's UNICEF Baby Friendly Initiative accreditation. She completed the Breastfeeding London Lactation Consultant Training course, achieving her IBCLC certification in 2022, and began a private practice in England alongside her NHS work. She returned to the Pacific Northwest in 2023 and started working online with Nest Collaborative, but missed face to face work, so she was able to join up with Wildflower Lactation, and
Mhm.
the Andaluz Midwife Team, where she participates in birth and pregnancy care while still prioritizing breastfeeding support. Whitney has a deep passion and respect for birth and parenting in all its forms. Her interest is in the space where birth and breastfeeding intersect. Is there anything else you'd like to add to that, Whitney?
No, that's absolutely perfect. Thank you for that lovely introduction.
Thank you. So, the reason why I brought you on here was because when we met, you were talking about the golden hour after birth.
Yes.
And I don't know if I should be saying golden hour after birth or should I say during birth? Like, tell us about the golden hour.
Yes, exactly. And to me, that is the crux of the issue. Traditionally, the golden hour is considered the first 1 to 2 hours after birth when you have uninterrupted skin to skin with your baby, ultimately, hopefully, culminating in a breastfeed. But in midwifery, we talk about the stages of labor. You've got the first stage, which is dilation and effacement. The second stage is the birth. The third stage, the placenta. If I ruled the world, we would teach the fourth stage, which is the skin to skin and ultimately the attachment of the baby to the breast. There's a lot of really amazing research that's emerging now that shows the long term impact of this really precious time and what it can mean for breastfeeding for mothers later on down the road. Like, did you know, Melinda, like 6 out of 10 mothers in the US end up giving up breastfeeding before they intended to? And yes, bless you. I mean, there's so many. That's the statistic that keeps me up at night. It just depresses me because with the right information and the right support, I think a lot more parents would reach their goals. So, one of the number one reasons cited for giving up before intended is perceived lack of milk, right? Low milk production, yes. Now, there was a study that found when a baby latches and feeds from the breast within the first 2 hours after birth, mother's milk supply was up to 40% higher on day four, right?
That makes sense.
Yeah,
It
it's
basically like kicks in all your natural resources.
exactly right. It triggers a cascade of hormones. It's a physiological response in both the mother and baby. It's actually a really beautiful, like, symphony to observe. I'm obsessed. I love watching that first breast crawl. It's so amazing to see.
Well, and
Because
also it's the messaging, right?
yes,
Because when you are not producing milk, the common message is like, it's okay. It's all right. Not everybody produces milk and it's fine,
right, right.
right?
And
And
it's
even
almost like not acknowledging how we interrupted the process, how we blocked your natural physiological response. And that was probably the reason. Yeah. Go on.
right. And oh, I was going to say, just because the conversation that you're having about the fourth part of birthing, right? That's not there, but also it's this the birth itself when people give birth without like outside the hospital. There's so much prep work that you would need to do to put yourself in that space that allows your body to do all the things that it innately knows. But the
Yes.
reason why we have that prep work is because it's not given to us. We're not raised in that way. There's not that red tent anymore where we honor
Yes.
and respect, right? And so all
Yeah.
of that is taken away. And so what's really lovely is there's a lot of people that are talking in that space. And this is why we're having this conversation about the golden hour,
Yeah.
because the more that we understand this fourth stage, we can go into a hospital birth if you so choose and say, this is my fourth stage and this is what I want.
Absolutely. And this is exactly what I want more birthing people to know is you have the right. This is a lot of people say, "Can I? Am I allowed?" And I'm like, "Are you kidding me? This is your birth. It's your baby." And I actually, my dissertation when I did my degree was on optimizing skin to skin in elective cesarean sections because cesarean section mamas have the lowest breastfeeding rates historically of all the different modes of birth. Interestingly, elective is even lower than emergency cesarean section rates,
That's the intention,
right?
right? It's the
Right?
intention. When you're in that space of elective, you literally it's a process for you. It's a machine. I'm a machine and I'm pushing out this baby. But if it's an emergency section, you intended to have this baby,
Precisely. You've
right?
labored, your body's gone through it exactly, and there's a physiological response to that. But it is really fascinating because even parents who choose to formula feed, maybe your intention was to bottle feed and formula feed from birth. The physiological response that skin to skin provides is actually still beneficial even for these parents. So it's something like you mentioned, there isn't this knowledge, there isn't exposure to this world as we grow up. It's all been shushed and put aside. We've breastfeed in toilets now. We cover our baby with a shawl. And if I ruled the world again, what I would do is, when they took you to middle school and they taught you about your periods, we should
Yes.
have gone into another room and learned about how your boobs work or
Yeah.
how birth works.
Yeah.
But it's not inherent in the culture anymore. So we need to be teaching. That's why I love your podcast so that you're spreading the
Thank
word,
you.
you're getting the message out.
Yeah, I mean, it was the intention because hello, I tell this story all the time. I had a conventional birth. I had no clue. And now knowing what I know, I'm just like, I don't want any other mothers to go through this because
Yes.
babies are so essential. They're so important. They're these beautiful souls. And
Mhm.
when we bring them in like a machine, that we're machines, it does humanity a disservice.
Oh, agreed, agreed. Dehumanizing the process, isn't it?
Dehumanizing the process from the get-go
Yeah.
and really taking away the mother's agency. And it's so interesting because, I've never even heard of the term physiological birth until I interviewed Megan from Andaluz,
Oh,
right? And
yes.
she's like, I'm like, what is this you're saying, physiological birth? And she's like, a physiological birth is the way things have always been done.
Yes. Intended, exactly.
And then when the hospitals came around, then it took away that, and now we have to claim it back and know that every birth needs to be a physiological birth. There are so many things that go on that really supports the mama baby bond. And even like I'm saying, even if somebody is scared, they want to go to the hospital, asking for that golden hour, the fourth step. And even if you're not breastfeeding, you're choosing, like you said, to get formula feed, putting your baby on your breast, I would imagine really creates, you can't but connect with this child and see it in a different way. Certainly, the society itself breaks that bond at every chance it gets.
100%. Yeah, it's the compartmentalizing, the
Ah,
dehumanizing. You have your baby goes to this room, you go to that room, you each get a different nurse. That whole process has interrupted the natural one.
right.
Just to talk back to skin to skin. When an infant is left uninterrupted skin to skin, there's all of these physiological things that happen. Their breathing slows, their heart rate regulates, their temperature settles. And there's actually studies that found that babies who've had skin to skin, they have more stable blood sugars and lower rates of NICU admissions. So skin to skin actually saves hospitals money if you want to get down to brass tacks, right? When mothers and babies are left to bond and to connect immediately after birth, both of their outcomes improve. So it's a simple thing. This is why I say, even if you choose not to breastfeed, it's still wildly beneficial. And not even just birth parents, right? The non-gestational parents benefit as well. There was a study that found that fathers who had 20 minutes of skin to skin with their babies on the day of birth, they went on to have better relationship building and better bonding at the ages of 4 and 5, right?
Right,
But
because
go on.
I'm just saying because like this child you're holding.
Yes. Yes. The connection, yeah, the spiritual connection. But I always say at this point, Daddy's got useless nipples though, unfortunately. So we want Mama to have the first. That's the most important one. She's going to
Right.
be the one lactating more than
Yeah.
me. But then of course important to get the partner involved too.
Right. It's when you were describing the physiological effects that the baby feels when you
Mm.
put skin to
Mm.
skin, it gave me chills because
I know.
it put me in that space of understanding what the baby experiences because especially in a hospital birth, it's
Yeah.
so jarring.
Oh,
They've been in this cocoon and then it's jarring, it's bright lights, and it's traumatic. So basically when you put them onto the mama and the mama is calm, the what is that? Co-regulation?
oh, brilliant. Exactly right.
Oh,
Co-regulation, and you
so
take an
beautiful.
immature infant who doesn't have the ability to regulate their emotions or even their own temperature, but they can piggyback on the maternal body and then achieve the same thing. But it gets weirder, right? I love talking about this. Newborns are colorblind, okay? They can only see about 12 inches in front of their faces and they can only see in black and white. So in pregnancy, now Belinda, let me ask you, do you remember, did your boobs change much at all in pregnancy? Do you remember any? I always like
Yes.
to make this joke. The classic thing is you get a darkening of the areola,
Yes.
right? So you take this infant who's colorblind and nearsighted and you lay them on their chest. What's the darkest thing in their field of vision, right? So they seek the breast, but it gets even weirder, okay? Have you ever noticed the little bumps on the areola?
Yes.
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 These are called Montgomery's glands or Montgomery's tubercles, depending on which country you're in. They're part of the sebaceous glands and they secrete a lubricant that helps to keep the nipple supple and healthy. Turns out that lubricant smells like amniotic fluid, right? So
What?
your baby comes, and you're exactly right. Birth is an extraordinary experience. They navigate a human pelvis and they come out, and suddenly this wild, bright, loud,
Yes.
cold, scary world,
Cold.
and they're placed upon their mother, and the first thing they feel is the heartbeat that they've been growing next to for 9 months. And then they smell the one thing in the room that smells like home. I know, it's magic. It's magic.
Ah.
And so you could place the baby there and you could just do nothing, and they will seek and hunt and find the nipple on their own. It's just beautiful to see.
No wonder why you were missing the face to face.
Yes.
That is so magical.
I know, I know. And I've done this for so long. I literally thought like, oh, I'll be fine. I'll have a cushy at-home consultant job. It'll be fine. Oh, I was getting depressed. I missed it. I'm obsessed with birth, and it gets into your soul to a point where when you get to try to leave it, you miss it. I had to come back. So yeah, I'm so grateful that I get to do a bit of both now. I get this lovely mixture of all of the above, but it's beautiful. Yeah.
I mean, so I am heavily invested in this space of meeting our children in a different way. And a lot
Mm.
of that has to do with the way that we educate them.
Yeah.
And so I always think that, the best space would be like if we had to have schools, institutions, that it would be based around a garden, a working garden that everybody
Mhm.
works in. And you would have these big warehouses that had all the art supplies, all the sports supplies, everything so that the kids can do whatever they feel like and also learn woodworking, learn the essentials, sewing, woodworking, cooking, all of that. Everybody working in community.
Yeah.
And now that we're having this conversation, the learning of the birthing process and how a baby enters the world
Yeah.
in a physiological way, not the medical
Yeah.
way, is
Yeah.
so important. It would change the way that we birth.
Agree.
100% from the male perspective and the female perspective.
Oh,
There would be so
completely
much
agree.
more respect because we don't know, and all we know is the medical profession and the medical side of
Completely.
it. And
Completely.
it's completely robotic
Yeah.
and dehumanizing. And this is why we don't understand how to respect a
Mm.
little human being.
Yes, yeah. And to be fair, mothers are going through this process and they're becoming traumatized by it as well. And fear around childbirth is increasing in great numbers. And I'll get these young women who've never been pregnant, never born children, and they're terrified of the nature of birth because of the horror stories that they've heard or things in film or on TV. Whereas if we spoke in a more holistic way, and a day to day, like this is normal, this is extraordinary, but this is human and this is how it's supposed to be, fear would also decrease and people would have more faith in their bodies and what they could achieve. There are studies on this where they looked at the term is self-efficacy, right? If you believe you can, turns out statistically you can. But
Hmm.
if you believe that you can't, statistically you are less likely to be successful. So if we translate that to birth and promoting normality, physiology, and belief in our own bodies, we would inherently have more successful outcomes.
Absolutely. And of course, it goes back again to the school system. They take away anything that's dangerous,
Yeah.
anything that builds a child's self-confidence and
Right.
basically just breaks the children down.
Right.
There's so many things that could be a little bit different.
Only, right. You know.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, I mean, I really want to normalize the word mother baby.
Yeah.
I think the conversation always needs to change. If we're ever going to talk about birthing, we must always speak of the baby once it enters the world as the mother baby
Right. As in a
because
dyad, as in a unit. Yeah.
it's more important to take care of the mother than it
Right.
is to take care of the baby because the mother inherently will take care of the baby.
Yes, yes, that's excellent. And okay, I love this because the word midwife means with woman, right? That's the whole point of this, is that we're with you, we're walking with you along this journey. And even within midwifery, there's this obsession with birth, right? The intrapartum being the most important, crucial point. When in reality, the bulk of our work is happening prenatally and postpartum, right? And so my work has almost sort of like I found myself pulled and driven in this way. I didn't intend to be a sort of postpartum midwife, but because I had a love and passion for breastfeeding, and because not every midwife does, whenever that mama needed help, they were like, stick Whitney in that room. She likes breastfeeding. And so like I always found myself the one in 4 o'clock in the morning troubleshooting and helping to get a baby on the breast. And then I walk away from that scenario going, what could I know more of? What could I learn? What skill set could I achieve to help the next mama? So I found myself seeking more and more education. I found myself becoming a tongue tie practitioner and then eventually an IBCLC, all of these things. And I've found my career driven towards this. And when we were talking, you said, "Oh wow, are midwives involved at that stage?" And I was like, "Absolutely." And actuality, this is one of the most important times because we're setting that mom and baby diet up for success long term. I'm pushing a kind of a model of care,
Yeah.
particularly with wildflower lactation. What we've been doing is I call it the preventative model, and this is based off of what's done in Europe. In Europe, your midwife will look after you for the whole of your pregnancy, up to 28 days after the birth, and then you have what's called a health visitor, which is a specialist kind of nurse who's had training in infant development, feeding, uh, anything that you need to know about your baby, basically, from
Hmm.
sleep training to starting solids to potty training. So this nurse will come to your house when your baby's 6 weeks old, and then again at 3 months, 6 months, 9 months, and they'll have these checkpoints where they can be there for support, and they're with you all the way until your child starts school. So this is
Wow.
it's amazing, isn't it? It's very different
Amazing.
here. I mean, look at the breastfeeding rates in Europe, right? It's huge. So tons more
Wait, what
postpartum.
are the breastfeeding rates in
Oh,
Europe?
nearly double that of here. Especially when you look in the Scandinavian countries, their average breastfeeding duration is more like 3 years.
3
Sweden has
years.
like 60 something, 70% are still breastfeeding at a year. It's huge. And I'm
Yeah.
paraphrasing numbers off the top of my head, but it's
Right.
it's a very noticeable difference,
Yeah.
Europe. Within Europe are some countries are better than others, and to be honest, the UK is the worst in Europe.
And even they're better than the US.
In certain stages, yes, and others, no. But it is funny because I mean, obviously, England and America have common roots and ancestry. So I think a lot of those Puritan ideals and women's bodies have unfortunately negatively impacted both cultures. But yeah. But this,
Yeah.
I'm really passionate about postpartum support, and it's
Mhm.
seriously lacking in this country. And other countries have taken into account and set up systems that don't exist here. So parents are using postpartum doulas, there's La Leche League, there's drop-in sessions and feeding groups. That's super important. But one of the bonuses about being an IBCLC is I can actually step into that role in a lot of ways because your insurance, in most cases, will pay for unlimited visits with a lactation consultant. I also happen to be a nurse and a midwife.
Yeah.
So I'm able to kind of jump in and drop these little nuggets of information and help to educate those parents along the way,
Mhm.
providing them with like anticipatory advice about what to expect in the next stage. So I feel really passionate. Postpartum is the Cinderella of the birth world. It's been ignored, it's been beaten, it's been
Right.
abused. But we need to inject it in more life and help these families at that time.
Oh, definitely. I mean, now even more people are talking about the fourth trimester,
Hmm.
right? There's so much more conversation about the fourth trimester, and it makes sense because the baby comes out and they need help because they're still developing. And that even goes farther than just the first year. I don't know if you're familiar with Rudolf Steiner and
No.
anthroposophy. He's a philosopher and his philosophy is called anthroposophy, and he basically really deeply studied the human development
Mm.
and basically talks about how from birth to age 7, all the babies' uh, etheric forces
Mm.
should be focused on the development of the organs.
Oh,
And so
yeah.
this is why you wouldn't introduce like reading or math or any of the academics because then you're filling their headspace and it's taking away the
Yeah.
energy from
Yes.
developing. And that no one
Yes.
talks about that. It's really important. Like, in fact, and also, they are pushing preschools earlier and
Yeah.
kindergarten earlier and
Yeah.
reading and all that. And no, because the child's body is still developing. The
Yeah.
child needs to sort of still be in a cocoon and also be left alone to be able to discover
Mm.
their environment
Yes.
and discover their own hands and feet and
Mm-hmm.
allow their organs to develop
Yeah.
free from outside interference.
Mm-hmm. I loved your analogy of the garden, and like learning through experiencing and play and interest. You're interested in woodworking? Hey, check it out. We got this for you. Whereas in the current model, it's no, you now is math time. You have to sit down and learn math when their body's telling them they want to run or play or sleep.
Yeah.
So it is forcing an artificial thing onto our children, isn't it?
Yes. And also dehumanizing them,
Mm,
right? Like how many of us now in our 40s or 50s are like trying to discover connecting with our bodies
Yes.
because we've been telling our bodies no their entire
Yeah.
lives. No, you cannot eat at this time. No, you cannot go to the
Precisely.
bathroom at this time. You can
Yes.
only go when the bell rings.
That's exactly right. Yeah.
Now, I want to go back because you are a tongue tie specialist.
Yeah.
I feel like the incidence of tongue tie seems to be more prevalent these days. And I don't know if it's because it's been given a name or is it because if we had more of the skin connection at birth, that that would uh, reverse or prevent some tongue
Right.
tie. What do you say about that?
Oh, it's such a good question. And this is such a deep topic because there's so much controversy at the moment around this. But let me first start by saying tongue ties are ancient. They have existed for as long as humans, as mentioned in the Bible, in Greek medical texts. I've got a picture of a wood carving in the 1500s of a baby having their tongue cut. Yeah. So
Okay.
it's ancient. What I will say is there are studies that have found that there's a significant increase in treatment of tongue ties lately
Mm.
and a lot more buzzwords around it. There was a really like damning article in the New York Times about 2 years ago, all about like the business of tongue tie and saying that all of these dentists and IBCLCs are out for money. Trust me, I did not get into this industry to make a fortune, that's for sure. But we know that the diagnosis and treatment rate is increasing. Back in like the 80s and 90s, breastfeeding was actually the minority. Significantly more people were formula feeding. And we know that feeding off of a bottle is so much easier than feeding off of a breast. So a lot of babies with tongue ties, it was not an issue, so it was not raised. But we've had more of a push once people have realized how much health outcomes are related to breastfeeding, that now we've had increased breastfeeding rates. And so as a result, more and more tongue ties are being identified just simply because the numbers are increasing in
Mm.
breastfeeding. So I think it's a convoluted issue, to be honest, about part of it is how we're diagnosing it, part of it is just more people are breastfeeding. Now, when we get into treatment options, though, one of the things that I am very passionate about is we don't always have to run to surgery to release it. So, what you were talking about, like optimizing supply from the moment, getting really good attachment and positioning right from the moment of birth, all of these things are going to help a baby breastfeed better. And we know 1 in 10 babies to 1 in 3, it depends on the study, do you look at honestly, may have a tongue tie. Okay. Only 50% of those actually need the surgical release.
Mhm.
So by optimizing everything else is inherently going to decrease treatment of tongue tie as well. Agreed.
Okay. So basically, maybe surgery as a treatment is a little bit offered too quickly.
Precisely. Yeah. And the American Academy of Pediatrics recently released a statement sort of in support of that. They recommend, good support from a lactation consultant first. We've also had really good success with cranial sacral therapy. That
Yay.
one's not as heavily evidence-based, so it's hard to get the mainstream to appreciate that. But I can say anecdotally, I've seen it work miracles. So oftentimes, let's work on the myofascial tension. Let's work on the neck and shoulder tension from birth first, and then we can get really good results. And I love working, particularly there's this backlash. A lot of mamas are recognizing how many babies are getting surgical releases and they're wanting alternatives. So we get a lot of clientele who come to us and we're like, okay, I mean, are your nipples hanging by a shred? Is your baby gaining weight? Are we good enough that we've got some time that we can work on this without jumping to the knife? And a lot of mamas are getting success and then they're feeling really proud of what they've achieved.
Yeah.
And sometimes we do all the things, and you know what? That baby needed a snip, and we send them off and they get a snip, and that's fine. But
Okay.
it's more important about coming to that ultimate decision, feeling that you did everything you could.
Right. Right. And it's just always having that, eh, letting parents know that they need to take agency.
Yes,
You
yes.
need to take agency and you need to really, and this is where the skin to skin is very helpful because when you have
Yeah,
that skin to skin, you create this special bond with your child so that you are more able and willing to tune in and
absolutely.
trust that the baby also knows what's best for them.
Yeah, yeah, I love that. Intuitive parenthood when you are
Yeah.
focused in on baby's needs. Well, we talk about responsive parenting, right?
Yeah.
And this is such an important buzzword, and it's been shown in studies that parents who are more responsive to their babies, those children grow up to have lower rates of anxiety and mental health disorders, and they're more balanced, resilient adults. And if you think about it, when you're skin to skin with your baby, when you're plugged in and they're connected to you in that way, not just the spiritual connection and the emotional connection, but physically, like through the hormones that are released, through the deep pressure sensors that directly connect to the central nervous system. It's a beautiful dance, honestly. And oh, I love it. And I'm always saying, It's not just for birth. Skin to skin is amazing for weeks and months afterwards.
Yes. Oh my gosh. Yes, of course, because it's just that reminder.
Yes.
It's a reminder to continue to connect in. And
Yes.
this is also why a
Mhm.
physiological birth is so important because in a physiological birth, your support person, your midwife, is
Yes.
supporting you and empowering you and not taking away your agency. Whereas in
Yeah.
a hospital birth, they don't know anything but to push fear
I
because
know,
that's
right?
how hospitals operate. I don't
Exactly.
know why they do that, but they absolutely take away agency. And so
Mhm.
if you're going to step into a hospital birth, it's really interesting because now that I'm thinking about it, it's like I said that in a physiological birth, you have to do so much work to get grounded, to
Yeah.
really, empower yourself. But it's the same if you go to a hospital. Because if you go to a hospital, you really need to do the work to empower yourself because everything is going against you. And
Yes.
at any moment, you could fall into fear.
100%. You have to build your walls so well and be prepared for not just like that pushback, but you will get passive aggressiveness. Like my sister recently was GBS positive. She had antibiotics for her first pregnancy, and her baby had the worst colic of her life. And there are studies that have found that antibiotic use in pregnancy is related to higher risk of colics. It's linked to the microbiome in the baby's gut. So this time around, she was convinced, even if she was GBS positive again, she wasn't going to do the IV antibiotics. Oh my goodness. Of course, she came back GBS positive and she declined. She had a thoughtful conversation with her OB. Unfortunately, OBs were the only options. She lives way out in Washington and there were no midwives around, which is really upsetting.
Yeah.
She was trying to make the best of a hospital environment. So we went into that birth situation. I came on board as her doula, so I could just support her through this. And then every single nurse who came in did the, you're not having antibiotics. Like, "Ah, do you know what that's going to do? Are you aware of the risks? Obviously, she was. She'd had a detailed conversation with the doctor, and the doctor signed off on the plan. Read the chart. You know what I mean?
Right.
Every next person who came in with attitude, I was getting like, get out of here. This is a
Get
positive
out.
birth environment. How dare you? But you need good people around you because honestly, the mama's busy, isn't she? They're bringing
Yes.
everything, they're doing their thing. So it's your
Yeah.
doula, it's your birth partner, it's your family who can help to protect you from that negativity. But I resent it intensely because all she wanted was
Mhm.
autonomy. All she
Yes.
wanted was agency. And
Mhm.
she got just the nastiest attitude, so much salt.
Right? I know. That's what I hear from the hospital environment, salt all
Yeah.
day long. And so now I want to go to talking about how you were a midwife in England. And you were saying how midwifery and the birthing experience is so different in England compared to here because mainly in England, midwives are the primary birth support for mothers.
Yes,
You
absolutely.
literally, it's like ancient times where you kind of, this is your village and this is your midwife and you have a baby at home.
Yeah, exactly. Well, we do have high hospital birth rates, to be fair, but
Mhm.
even in the UK, we do about a 10% home birth rate in certain areas, less in others. So I practiced in Brighton, which, let's be honest, Brighton is like the Portland of England, okay? Full
Okay.
of like hipsters and everyone's got tattoos and lots of crunchy earth mamas and yurts and things. I love Brighton. So, there are definitely other parts, certainly some of the northern cities and some of the other areas where we have even like 1% home birth rate. So it varies
That's so
significantly.
low.
But Amsterdam's 20% home birth rate. So it's much more integrated into the culture there.
Yeah.
And it's part of the hospital system. So I once I'd gotten established and had enough experience as a hospital-based midwife, I then moved on to the home birth team. And when I would go to work, I'd put my scrubs on, I'd go to the ward, I'd help where I was needed. And then if a mama called in labor who said I would prefer a home birth, I jumped into a hospital car with my equipment. I went out, delivered the baby, brought the placenta back, computed up the birth certificate, job done, right? And mama stayed home the whole time. So it is a very different system, but yes, when you fall pregnant, the first thing you would do is go to your local doctor and they would say, here's the midwife associated with our doctor's office, go and see them. And we would do the entire process. If you remain low risk, your midwife would deliver your baby in the hospital or at home, and then we would do the postpartum care. If you had a pre-existing condition or if you developed a condition in pregnancy, that's the only time you would see a doctor.
Hmm.
So I think the statistics are we had about 50% vaginal births, 25% instrumental, which would be like forceps or vacuum, and then 25% cesarean section rate.
So
But
low.
yeah, much lower than here, right? But there's lots of other statistics as well. Like, for example, less than 50% of our population have epidurals. So
Oh,
something like 90 something percent of hospital births in the US have epidurals.
right.
So we're much more skilled at supporting and facilitating upright birth, movement during birth, spinning babies. Are you familiar?
Yes.
Yeah.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
In Europe, it's called biomechanics, birth biomechanics, and that's taught as a regular. I remember doing it as a student midwife because I had a passion for it. But
Yeah.
then, as time went on over the subsequent decade, we started teaching it in the hospitals, and now it became part of the protocols. So, like if
Hmm.
somebody had an epidural, the protocol was sideline release every hour and 45 minutes, kind of thing. It's just amazing. So
Amazing.
they've integrated a lot more important elements of physiological birth in situations where it has to be in a hospital, kind of a thing.
Right.
And
But
that's
also, I mean, the difference is even if you are having hospital birth in England, it's a midwife that is directing your birth, as
exactly
opposed
right.
to in the US when it's the hospital birth is prevalent and you're being delivered by a doctor. So
Right.
in the US, it's more viewed as a complication
It is. It
as
is
opposed
or
to a natural
an
process.
illness, isn't it? It's
Yeah,
and you're not qualified. How could you possibly know how to do this on your own, woman?
right.
You know what I mean?
Well, you've been public school educated. You don't know anything.
See, it all feeds into it, doesn't it? It's the same loop. Yeah, exactly
Right,
right.
right.
I know it is really weird. I remember I was in the UK and I'd come back for a visit to see my family and I was talking to a labor and delivery nurse and I said something like, "Oh, well, you know how they just fall out sometimes. Surely you must have like caught a few babies in your years, right?" And she went, "Oh no. Thank goodness we've got a really good emergency team. So they got in there quick before." And I'm like, before, like, do you really
What?
think a baby coming out of a vagina is an emergency? Like,
Oh
this is
my
the
gosh.
normalest. Honestly, my favorite births are the births when I do nothing at all.
Yeah.
I'm just
Yeah.
there. That's it.
Right.
The mama
Right.
does it all.
Right. I mean, that's naturally how it's done. The
Yeah,
mama usually does it all.
yeah, absolutely. I know.
Yeah.
And I think, just go back to the birth center. At Andalus, for example, our average labor time is 4 to 6 hours.
Amazing.
I
That's the
know,
thing.
right? And then
Mhm.
everybody in the hospitals are talking about these 36-hour long labors,
Yes.
this grueling, long experience. I didn't
Yeah.
sleep for days.
Yeah, I've had several friends who first birth was a hospital birth and they labored
Mhm.
and labored, and then they decided their second birth they were going to do a home birth.
Mhm.
And literally the baby pops out just like that. And it's just
Pink.
like when you hear these stories, something must go on in your head that's like, wait a minute, there's something different about this. And I
Yes.
would prefer that to
Yes.
that.
Yes, exactly.
And then you start seeing how unnatural it is to give birth in a American hospital.
Yeah, with the bright lights and people staring and
Lying on your back.
yeah, feet up in the thought of me. You know what else too, which really bummed me out, and I've been debating about whether or not to complete my education and do this certified nurse midwife thing here.
Mhm.
I was with my sister for her first birth, and a certified nurse midwife was looking after her in this instance. And what she would do is the nurses did actually, to be honest, I did everything. The nurses sat at the desk and they remotely monitored. I like held my sister through every contraction because she did Pitocin driven labor with no epidural for 6 hours. Yeah.
Oh, that sounds
Tough
terrible.
tough cookie, right? I was all, whoa. She was amazing. She powered on through this, but they just sat out at the desk. And I guarantee if I hadn't been supporting her, she would have been like epidural, epidural for a
Yeah,
second because
right.
nobody was supporting her. So then they call in the midwife, like in the last 10 minutes for the delivery. She was suturing before the placenta was even out.
What?
I know. I was
Why?
give her a second because she's got other stuff to do. She had all these other women to look after. So she's like, zip, zip, zip. That's my 10 minutes gone. And I was like, the word midwife means with woman. I
Yeah.
don't think certified nurse midwives are with their women at all. They're like baby doctors, is what they're trying to
Right.
do.
Right.
So the hospital system here seems like it's trying to reclaim some of the magic of like the European system and the way it used to be here in the US back in the day. But I
Only in
worry,
Oregon.
really? You think so?
Mhm.
Yeah.
I think so.
So sadly, we do our best, but what I'm witnessing here since I got here is the birth centers where the magic seems to be happening. If you cannot or do not want a home birth, the birth center is that perfect halfway point. I think, like we talked about, the cultural fear that's put in us, the lack of knowledge that parents have. A lot of people are afraid to take that leap and do a home birth on their own.
Yeah.
And self-efficacy is important. If you don't feel safe at home, then you shouldn't be at home. That's
Right.
fine.
Right.
But you don't necessarily have to go the route of the extreme medicalization of birth. The person is the perfect environment. And we can administer oxygen, we can do IVs, we can do emergency, we do training and drills. We're all certified in neonatal resuscitation and CPR. And quick transfers. We can get you to the hospital in 10 minutes if we need to. But
Yeah.
we still have like something like a 93% success rate at our birth center, only 7% transferring into the hospital for one reason or another. Again, phenomenal numbers. Like
Oh,
these moms are getting
wonderful.
great experiences. Yeah.
Yeah, when I did my interview with Megan, she was saying how Oregon actually has a really, they're most supportive of natural births. There's two hospitals that actually have like birthing floors, which
Yeah.
in generally in most states they don't have that.
Really?
A birth there's no such thing as like a birth is a operational procedure, right? And so that's what it is.
That's so depressing.
I know. And really like Perfect Child is all about like respecting the child.
Yeah.
And we have to talk about birth. We have to
Mhm.
talk about respecting the child at birth.
Absolutely. And when we were talking about my experience in England, one of the things when I got up into that higher position where I was doing managerial stuff and accreditation things, the UNICEF Baby Friendly Initiative, right? It's a recommendation. It's through the World Health Organization, and it's just simply 10 steps that each hospital should follow to help support and facilitate breastfeeding. It's about prioritizing the infant and making sure that mother and babies are together and able to bond so that breastfeeding happens. And they've shown in study after study that baby friendly initiative increases breastfeeding rates. It improves outcomes. Interestingly, there was a study done in Georgia here in the US that found BFI hospitals also had a decreased rate of disparity in breastfeeding rates amongst races, right? Because
Mm.
in this country, that's a huge problem. Like African American women are half as likely to breastfeed as a Caucasian woman, for example, which is bonkers. And the
Crazy.
opposite of what's true in Europe, for example, a
Right.
woman from Africa would be twice as likely to breastfeed as a white British woman would. So that comes down to institutional racism. So hospitals that implemented the BFI had a lower disparity based on race. So it actually improved that racial outcome too. The
Mhm.
sad truth of it though is 97% of hospitals in the UK are baby friendly accredited. 25% of US hospitals are.
Just because the hospitals aren't seeking it.
Yeah,
Is that what it
exactly.
is?
Exactly.
They
There
just
was a
don't
big,
care.
no, none at all because they don't care about babies or mothers or
Right.
breastfeeding. No, if they
Right.
wanted to, there's a really simple pathway right here that'll do it. So, yeah.
Yeah, it's the money. They just don't have the time.
There's been a lot of pushback as well, I think. You get the sort of like boob Nazi thing going on, and a lot of women felt pressured to breastfeed, which is super unfortunate. And I've known a lot of women who were desperate to breastfeed, and for whatever reason, they couldn't. And they should never be made to feel bad for that. I mean, no parent should ever be made to feel bad.
No.
Parenting's hard, no matter what, whether you choose to breastfeed or bottle feed. So we should all be supportive of each other.
Yeah.
But I think unfortunately, that's created an environment where there's now a pushback, and you're hearing things like fed is best. And that depresses me as well
You
because,
mean like if you can get formula, fed
yeah,
is best, right?
that is best. Yeah,
Mm.
don't worry so much. And I
That's the
understand.
thing. That's the messaging.
Yeah, exactly. Like, don't worry, it's too hard. This is an easier way. The truth of it is, though, most people who have bottle fed or triple fed, they know that is not the easier way. It's actually nothing's easier than just popping a boob up in your mouth and
Yes.
going to sleep again.
Right.
But that's beside the point. But I just really want to be supportive of all parents, regardless of what happens. We should be not tearing each other down, but lifting each other up
Mm.
because it's counterproductive to the movement
Yeah.
anyway, right?
Yeah. And really, like this conversation is really to talk about and put out there that our intentions matter.
Yeah.
And when you have the intention, when you know that the mother baby dyad is so important and the
Mm.
relationship that the mother has with the baby is
Mm.
really important and pulling in the father as well or the partner, whatever it is, the skin on skin
Yeah.
and just the intention of doing the best for your child
Yeah.
and knowing that those institutions that are outside of you, even the people in the US that are outside of you, nurse midwives,
Mhm,
they
mhm,
don't have your best intention. You
mm.
do.
Yeah,
And
yes.
you have to seek it. So you have to do the work.
Oh, completely agreed. You are the expert of you, and
Mhm.
you have to advocate for yourself in this system. Unfortunately, it's designed to put you on a treadmill of interventions that lead to negative outcomes, and that leaves you with a feeling of feeling helpless and
Mhm.
out of control and increases trauma.
Right.
But those individuals who retain agency and advocate for themselves and remain involved in the process, even when the worst case scenario happens and say you needed an emergency medical cesarean section, even then, those mothers feel less trauma and feel more positive about their birth experience than, say, somebody who had a classic vaginal delivery and everything's great, but they felt out of control, they felt scared, and they felt traumatized.
Right.
So it's more about yourself and the prep work that you were talking about and educating yourself and surrounding yourself with people who lift you up
Yeah.
and provide you with positivity. That's how you create a positive birth experience, regardless of what the outcome.
Yeah, and now that I'm hearing you, what's coming to me is the simple test is basically the person that you're working with that you've chosen. If they create any fear in your body, get rid of them.
Great. Yes, exactly.
Because you want somebody that's going to push you and help you and just always lift you up,
Completely.
right? If someone's going to
Completely.
push fear in your sphere, get rid of them. We don't need
Absolutely.
we don't need anyone putting fear in our space in any situation. We
Yeah,
cannot make
completely.
decisions out of fear.
Fear is the key word. Where the mind goes, the body follows. And so fear sets in here, and then you shut down in a fear response, and that breaks down labor. It's literally the hormones are the opposite of the hormones of labor.
Right.
So completely agreed.
Great. Thank you so much.
Oh, you're so welcome.
Well, did we cover everything that you wanted to cover?
I think so. I know it's a fun conversation, a little ramble chat, but I love it. And I just love your passion, Belinda. You're great. And I love that you're getting the message out there. I'm really honored to be invited onto your podcast. Thank you.
I mean, I've never have I heard of the term golden hour. Never. I'm 53 years old. I had my child 16 years ago. Not one person has uttered golden hour.
I know. Like fourth trimester, we need to get this out there. I want it to be
Yes.
in the ethos. Like we need to be talking about it more.
Yes. Fourth trimester, golden hour, and mother baby dyad.
Yes. Yes. Agreed.
Thank you.
You're so welcome, lovey.
Bye.
Bye.